Hey, I did my first of my movie series project of doing one movie a week, which I'm sure to some it seems like a pretty low bar, but it's like okay, I think I can do one movie a week where I just sort of sit down and pick something that I just want to watch. It doesn't have to be a decision between me and Ja. Just like okay, and I'm gonna kind of indulge in my uh, art art movie focus. Art movie and probably documentaries, which is what I started off with because this was a super easy one. Netflix released for free, though actually we have Netflix, but I watched it on YouTube. The documentary by Ava DuVernay. It's the 13th, which is all about the 13th Amendment of the United States, where with the ending of slavery, there was they basically you have the thing where slavery is abolished and everyone is free except if you're a prisoner. Except if you're a prisoner, then you've lost your voting rights and you get to and if your labor is becomes the states basically, and shows how this was used as a way of with the end of slavery in the United States. Prison labor suddenly became the thing that was used to rebuild the economy of the South of the time, and indeed, how the prison population in the United States, as they say, the United States has 5% of the world's population at the moment, and it has 25% of the prison population of the world at the moment. And how does a country that kind of prides itself on being the democratic bastion of the world of equality, how is it that they have such a disproportionate prison population? And this documentary goes through that, talking to various experts using the various kind of archival footage, shows how this has taken place. Starting off with something like the birth of a nation, media itself being used to glorify the Ku Klux Klan, and use it as as these noble knights riding through the thing. Just the idea that the burning of a cross was not something that was actually around until Birth of a Nation. It was the cross burning was a image that was created by D.W. Griffith, the movie's creator, the Birth of a Nation creator, as a striking cinematic image of these noble hooded white figures protecting white women from rapacious, beastly images of black men as rapists. And this is definitely a theme because this became kind of the playbook throughout the years, going right up until the present of the kind of the racist dog whistles of someone like Donald Trump, but definitely going back through the Clintons, the George W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, Nixon, and indeed what we find is that that with the Ku Klux Klan and all that persecution, black people basically dispersed. They were refugees from the South, where there was horrible persecution egged on by stuff like Birth of a Nation, and the mass incarceration of black people. They spread out all over the country as internal refugees in their own country due to the persecution. and there was push, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, push for civil rights, and Johnson actually signing into law stuff that was supposedly going to kind of lead to, that civil rights won. We're going to bring actual true equality to the United States. However, what you get is a reaction from that. You get Richard Nixon with his Law and Order campaign, which his one of his advisors actually kind of went on record saying, like, it wasn't about law and order. It wasn't about a war on drugs. That was a way of it was a way of criminalizing black people, and civil rights protesters and hippies and anyone that the Republicans wanted to target. Were put under the blanket of this thing of like, no, we're not targeting anyone. We're targeting, it's a law and order, which means criminalizing acts that were most specifically done for done by black people, and giving them increasingly harsher and harsher sentences to push more and more of that population into prisons. And getting into kind of and this getting continued with Ronald Reagan, this getting continued with Bill Clinton, the Democrats realizing that the only way that they were going to get elected is if they also became hard on crime. They watched Michael Dukakis get taken down for being soft on crime with George W. Bush, and went, okay, now we have to be even harder on crime, which is where you get someone like Bill Clinton, a Democrat, pushing forward, 3 strikes you're out, using kind of code words, him and Hillary Clinton using words like super predator, basically code words of these are, evil black people that we have to, that are basically dehumanizing. And this documentary also doing a good job of showing that, like, this was such the mass dominant discourse at the time that a lot of the black people actually supported tough on crime, harsh sentences and stuff like that, and bought into it themselves. So it was on which on both sides. They also showed people like Angela Davis and other people who stood up to this stuff, and indeed how much political protest was definitely criminalized. Was you had the FBI coming after Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Angela Davis, and others, trying to get them forcing them to fight long court battles, imprisoning them, some fleeing to Cuba, stuff like that, where a concerted, systematic effort to try and squash any actual kind of legitimate political change. We're not talking about even criminals here, people who had been pushed into this stuff due to horrible economic conditions of segregation, of discrimination, which basically push people. When people are in straits like that, they'll do illegal things to survive. So there's that. There's a good section at the end, which actually they show clips from John Oliver this week tonight, who he's done deep dives on stuff like this, of the bail bond and parole system, and how groups like ALEC, which are basically industry groups and politicians, right-wing politicians, putting forward legislation on a lot of these bills, the 3 strikes you're out, the minimum mandatory sentences, which benefited the prison corporations. This is a privatized big business industry. Charging prisoners exorbitant rates for phone calls, providing really substandard medical care for prisoners, Which is one of these easy things of like, oh, they don't deserve to have good health care or anything like that. It's like, yeah, well, once they're in the care of the state, if the state is brutalizing them, why would we expect them not to be to become even more brutalized by this stuff? It's like it's always that horrible argument of like they're subhuman, so we're going to act subhuman towards them. It's like, uh, you know, you know, it's the traps of dehumanization of a group of people. Um, but showing how Alex has now gotten into the like they have a smarmy spokesman who comes on this documentary. He's like, oh no, we've gotten out of all the prison stuff. They're not even a member of us anymore. We're into reforming the probation and bail bonds and putting everybody on GPS trackers because that's who their members of ALEC are now, and it's big business again. It is ways of making money off of the system, and it's like that. It's that American thing of like, something like prisons, laws, and stuff like that. Privatizing this stuff means you're making it a profit-based industry, and industries don't want to lose money by not having tons and tons of people in a system, and also, a white majority also wanting to continue to be a white majority, and obviously that's been shown by the massive votes for Donald Trump. But even like, just like the Democrats themselves have been shown that, like, if they can think they can get elected by sounding off these kind of dog whistles, they've shown in the past that they'll do that and still claim to be warm and cuddly at the same time. I can see why someone like Hillary Clinton just did not get traction there. It makes it a lot clearer while people were looking at Donald Trump and going, yeah, he's a dog whistle racist asshole. It's like we have old clips of Hillary Clinton doing the very same thing, and her husband being kind of directly responsible for a giant increase in blacks being put into prisons. It's funny, as a white guy looking at the United States, you think, oh, the 90s, like, oh, that was a good time. That's Bill Clinton playing his saxophone. It's like, I can see why a black population, black American, might have a very different viewpoint of different idea of that time. And the just a telling thing of crack cocaine versus cocaine. It's like you get a slap on the wrist for cocaine, a white drug, whereas crack cocaine, used primarily by poor black people, you go to jail for the rest of your life, just on simple possession stuff. It's crazy. Them basically sounding the alarm bell now, saying like, look, these, like, yeah, we're trying to do prison reform, but we have to keep the eye on the ball because it's like a cancer. It goes from one system and it just travels over to another system, and it's going from prison reform. Great, yeah, we'll get out of that and shut down the prisons. Now we're going to have everybody incarcerated in their own communities on GPS things, which will be cheaper for governments, but it's going to still be a mass incarceration, mass control of a population that the white majority are afraid of. That they're afraid that they're going to get equality. This isn't so much about law and order as it is about black people in the United States wanting equality, wanting a lot of the democratic things. They want to be allowed to vote. I mean, we've just watched a freaking election where really Donald Trump has tried to get a lot of votes disallowed, and surprise, a lot of those votes are black votes. He's trying to disenfranchise huge swaths of a population that have been disproportionately affected by COVID because they are economically vulnerable. They don't have access to healthcare. They're working in lower paid jobs that you can't you can't work at home because it's not a nice white collar job. So yeah, that was a really it was a really good documentary. Very well paced, well cut. It's one of these things of like, you can see they're trying not to get bogged down in any one person or any one issue. That's like, we punch this, we punch this, we punch this, we go along. Really good use of music from the different eras, and all that. So yeah, that was the 13th by documentary by Ava DuVernay. More videos later.